We begin in song with Lecha Dodi on page 20, and we will be singing verses 1, 2, and 9.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good evening. Such a pleasure to be with you on this evening when we welcome one another, welcome a treasured guest teacher, and of course, welcome Shabbat together, so that we can move together into Shabbat in a prayerful and tranquil and undisturbed mode. I want to invite you, as we do each week, just to make sure that our phones are off, along with anything else that might buzz or distract us for the spiritual work that we're here to do together. Once you have done that, to make sure that we are praying in a community of friends, new and old, I invite you to take just a moment to wish a Shabbat Shalom to someone seated nearby.
Shabbat Shalom.
This evening on this Heritage Shabbat, as we begin making our first steps into this 75th anniversary year of this historic congregation, this evening is our opportunity to take just a moment and look back at the classical aesthetic heritage in which this congregation was born and grew up. That classical aesthetic heritage which lent so much strength to our reform movement in an era that was precious to so many of us. But this is also an evening for us to look forward with joy and pride at the next generation of our congregation's leadership and membership. And so it is a great delight to invite the Pesikoff and the Rosen families up to the bima to lead us as we light the Shabbat candles this evening in anticipation and celebration of the Benot Mitzvah, which will take place this weekend. As the Pesikoff and Rosen families make their way up, you can make your way to page 2, where you'll find the words of our blessing. Come on over. Heather is up first.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives.
Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. On this Shabbat, let us be open to new melodies and old refrains, to sounds that take our souls to uncharted territory, to motifs that feel true and comforting. Let us be open to God, majestic and awesome, intimate and near. Our ears are our guides, exploring new paths and those well-trodden. Our voice is our compass, mapping where we have been and where we are going. Prayer is an adventure that we cannot perfectly design. We can only be open to where it might take us. Let me hear you, God, when I hear my spirit soars in prayer. May I sing from love, not afraid to waste my sweetness on
On page 6, we enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Together, now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. Page 28, we rise. Of this Ma'ariv Aravim, the prayer for the coming of evening, is not found in your prayer books, but comes instead from the Union Prayer Book, the flagship liturgy of our classical Reformed tradition. We praise you, eternal God, creator of the universe, by whose laws the shadows of evening fall and the light of each new day is opened. In wisdom you have established the change of times and seasons and ordered the ways of the stars in their heavenly courses. You are the creator of heaven and earth, the source of all life. We praise you, eternal God, for the day and its work, and for the night and its rest. Page 32, we read together.
We sing.
We sing. As you find your seats, it is a pleasure for me to invite Samantha Rosen to the bima to lead us in prayer. Sam will lead us continuing on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ותשמרתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We pray responsively on page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Our next prayer is a blessing for Shabbat on page 44 of Vishamru. In commenting on the very last phrase, Shabbat va'inafash, the Sefer HaBachir writes, do not read Shabbat as a verb, but as the subject, the day of Shabbat. And do not construe the verb va'inafash as rested, but rather as refreshing souls. Thus, the phrase may be read as Shabbat refreshes all souls. What is Shabbat compared to? It is like a fountain in the midst of a garden, when the fountain flows, the entire garden flourishes. We are here to sit by the fountain a while, to rest and be replenished, and hopefully to flourish. We continue with the words of Vishamru. Now my honor to invite up Isabel Pesikoff to lead us in the Amidah, which begins on page 46, and invite you please to rise.
Adonai sifatita ufiad gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'anora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zoher Haseavot ve'ima'ot, U'mevigula livnei bneihem, Leman Shemo ve'ahava, Melech Chazer u'Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mehayeh hakol atarav le'hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'mariv hagashem, Mehakel ha'im behesed, Mehayeh hakol be'rahamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei holim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato, Lishene Athar, Mihama Habal Kivirat, Umidel Melech, Melech Memid, Umehaye, Umasmir Hirshua, V'ne'emana Tale Hahayot Hakol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mehaye Hakol. Atah Kadosh V'Shem HaKadosh, Uvdoshim B'chol Yom Yahallelu Selah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue with a prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, on page 60.
Please be seated.
We take a few moments now for silent prayer and gratitude. When we resume, we will be on page 61.
Friends, we pause now to turn our thoughts and our prayers to healing as we call to mind the names of those members of this congregation and those dear to us on this Shabbat evening who find themselves in need of healing and recovery on this Shabbat. Together we offer these prayers tonight on behalf of Florence Berger, Bradley Borden, James Brummett, Jeffrey Feinstein, Buster Feldman, Alan Garber, Don Gorowitz and Don Grobart, Sarah James, Beverly Kovnat, Lawrence Levy, Michael Marcoux, Liba Reisman, Rebecca Risch, Marilyn Shapiro, Alex Smoots Thomas, Eugene Wilkenfeld, Roger Williams, Yisrael Moshe ben Ruta Masha, Baila bat Baruch Behuda, Shoshana bat Chana, Chaya Itzel bat Ezer Dvora. Together we turn to our worship handout for the words of Mishaberach, which we offer together. Friends, just a few brief announcements before we have the opportunity to hear from our guest preacher this evening. A reminder that we'll offer the blessings of Kiddush and Motzi together as a community at the conclusion of our service tonight, and just a word of gratitude to the Pesachov and Rosen families who've provided the challah and wine for this evening so that we could have the opportunity to offer those blessings. Thank you for your generosity. If you picked up a Shabbat handout on your way in, you can find information about a number of upcoming events in our community. There's more information on all of these and more in that handout and online. a few brief highlights. I want to express my gratitude personally to the Barish family and the Chair King, and to our friends at the Jewish Federation of Greater Houston for co-sponsoring this weekend's visit by the Barish Limud Scholar in Residence, Rabbi Dr. Gary Zola. Our weekend with Dr. Zola continues tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. when he will present a session titled Great Voices, Civil Rights and Jews in the American South. That session will be held in the Oshman Multipurpose Room. We'll begin with some light breakfast refreshments at 8:30. We also hope that you'll join our Barish Limud Scholar in Residence, Dr. Zola, along with the rest of your clergy team and educators from across the community at Beth Yeshurun this Sunday for the community-wide Yom Limud that will be held from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And a note or two about our 75th anniversary. The celebrations of this great anniversary continue. We'll have a social action opportunity together with Bo's Place on Thursday, February 21st. More information in that handout and online. Lastly, a very exciting note that we'll be traveling together to Austin on Wednesday, February 27th, as we are recognized with a commemorative resolution that will be read on the floor of the Texas Capitol. This resolution commemorating the 75th anniversary of our congregation will be read as part of the session in the Texas House of Representatives. Very exciting. Please contact our program director, Jason Plotkin, if you'd like to join us on our charter bus to take part in the festivities in Austin. And now just a word of introduction to our guest this evening. In your handout, you'll have a chance to see the background and credentials of Rabbi Dr. Zola, who comes to us from his leadership of the American Jewish Archives in Cincinnati. So I won't take more of his time by reading it to you, but just a note to say that in addition to the credentials that recommend a teacher, there's the kind of credentials that come with certificates hung on an office wall or lists of publications and big, thick CVs that are handed out in professional settings. But there's also the kind of credentialing that comes from the depth of one's impact on the hearts and the minds and the careers of one's students. And in Rabbi Dr. Gary Zola's case, he is well qualified indeed by both measures. He's an accomplished teacher, an extraordinary researcher, and a remarkable professional in the field of Jewish history. But he is also, to me at least, most importantly, a great mensch, a loving teacher, and a figure to whom I owe great credit and many thanks for having shaped my learning and the work that I do with you every day. I am grateful, I am delighted, and I am very proud to invite Rabbi Dr. Gary Zola to the Bima.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's really such a great honor to be back again in this historic congregation. I'm not a stranger to this community, and yet it is always really a great thrill to be in this remarkable pulpit. Now, in light of the fact that I am a clergy, as you heard, a member of the clergy, I don't mind beginning by saying, before I speak, I have something to say. So what I have to say before I actually begin my remarks is that I think that it is, in fact, this may be the most important thing that I say all evening. It's relatively easy, I would think, for a person like myself to come into a city to speak about a topic that I have the opportunity to study in some great depth. In my particular field, I literally sit in the repository where all the research material is there. For heaven's sakes, I don't even have to go look for it myself. I can have people bring it to me. So it's relatively easy for me, hopefully, to sound at least moderately intelligent from the pulpit. But the greatest and most important, the most significant work is not the work of a visiting fireman. That is the work of your Klei Kodesh, those who are here with you day after day, week after week, year after year. Those men and women, your religious leaders, who are here to give meaning to our lives, to help us celebrate, as we're doing tomorrow with Isabel and Samantha, to help us on difficult times. It's one thing to come in and give a talk that you're familiar with. It's an entirely different matter to be well prepared week in and week out to teach something new, because when you're in one place constantly, you cannot give the same talk again and again. And that is a challenge. And this year, it so happens, we're marking the 200th birthday of Isaac Mayer Wise, the founder of the Hebrew Union College, the founder of the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, now the Union for Reform Judaism, the founder of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. And it was his vision. He was the one who was committed to the idea that unless we create American educated rabbis who understand how to touch the hearts and the minds of American Jews, we cannot depend upon the European yeshivot to touch the lives of our people. We owe them a great deal, and I just want to say, not in response, certainly not a quid pro quo for the lovely introduction that Rabbi Hayon just gave, but it's so heartening for me. I'm sure there are many of you in the congregation who are teachers, to spend your days with students who then go out and are so remarkably accomplished, like your Klei Kodesh, like your religious leaders. I'd like to say words about each and every one of them at length, but Rabbi Hayon did give me a time limit, so I'm going to proceed. I want to thank them very much for honoring me this evening and inviting me to be with you. Now, I'm looking out into this crowd, and I see that I will not have to define or explain who Johnny Carson was. That's not always the case. Sometimes I have to educate a younger audience and let them know about whom I'm speaking. And I used to watch Johnny Carson in high school and college, and I remember that I was always a treat when Milton Berle was a guest on the Johnny Carson show, and he'd always have a few good lines to deliver. And one of my favorite is when he told Johnny that he had come a little early to the West Coast because he always likes to visit homes for the aged, cheer up people who are elderly. He says, I had a problem, though, today. He said, I decided to walk in and cheer everyone up, and I saw that there was a woman sitting off to the side, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get her to smile. So I was just determined to brighten her day, and I walked right over to the lady, and I put my great big Milton Berle smile on my face, and I said, hello, ma'am. You know who I am, don't you? And immediately her face brightened, and she looked at me right in the face, and she said, now, don't you worry, young man. If you don't remember who you are, just go over and talk to the lady behind that desk. She'll be glad to remind you. Well, that hopefully humorous introduction leads me to a more serious point, and that is that the historical enterprise, the effort to reconstruct our past, is an antidote to the malady that one might describe as collective amnesia. And of course, many American Jews suffer from this condition. We do not know who we are. And it is an undeniable fact that an understanding and an appreciation of our past always serves to stimulate our collective memory. The past can remind us of who we are. Now this year, as you've heard already from the rabbi, Emanu of Houston is commemorating its diamond anniversary. 75 years ago, in 1944, more than 200 men and women participated in the organization of this distinguished congregation. In describing their hopes and dreams for the congregation's future, the founders insisted that they were searching for, quote, a fuller fellowship in worship, a deeper sympathy with the household of Israel, and indeed with all humankind. Now, Emmanuel's pioneers wanted to create a more vibrant Judaism. They wanted to do so here in Houston. And they left a record. They described the excitement they felt from those early days. They did so in very colorful, even exuberant words. Building Emmanuel was, they wrote, the fulfillment of a dream, a vision. It was an adventure in religion. Now, it's hardly an exaggeration to assert that Emmanuel's founding rabbi, Robert I. Kahn, remains to this day the most eloquent and articulate voice that has endured from the congregation's very beginning. Now, on Rosh Hashanah, 1949, just 2 short weeks after the congregation moved into this very building, its first and only home, Rabbi Kahn delivered a truly remarkable sermon wherein he set forth his vision for the congregation's future. So tonight, on this Sabbath Eve, let's go back 70 years and turn back the clock, for it seems appropriate as we launch the 75th anniversary of the congregation to give ear to Rabbi Kahn's message. He informed his listeners that if they aspired to have their congregation fulfill its raison d'etre, the real reason it was created, then the congregants and the rabbi would need to imbue this new congregation with 3 vitally important qualities. First, Rabbi Kahn reminded his listeners that Emmanuel would always need to possess the resources of a storehouse. In other words, Emmanuel would need to serve as an entrepot, wherein Jews could safely preserve, and I quote, all that has taken place in the history of our people, along with the luminous insights of our Jewish spiritual giants from all ages. In order for the synagogue to become a storehouse, the rabbi said, it would always need to be well stocked with, quote, memories of our immemorial history, 3,000 years of memories, of dreams, and ideals. Now, in addition to envisioning this congregation as a storehouse, Rabbi Kahn reminded his people that night that their new synagogue should simultaneously become and remain a blockhouse. Now, those of you who don't know what a blockhouse is, that might be described as a safe house. In other words, Emmanuel should strive to become a sanctuary, a safe haven, whenever its members face life's most difficult opponents. As Rabbi Kahn averred that evening, the synagogue should be a place where, quote, people found strength in the dark hours of humankind's nights. So he urged his listeners to fashion the synagogue into a safe haven of comfort. Let it be a citadel of caring, a mainstay of succor and reassurance. Emanu, he taught, should strive to become a blockhouse to which its members would always be willing to retreat, quote, when all else was lost, but the strength and security that is available only within these very walls. Let them come to this congregation, he said, wherein they will find once again, and I quote, the dignity and the strength that derive from a living faith, a faith that unflaggingly proclaims the worthiness of life. And last, in addition to being a storehouse and, of course, a blockhouse, Rabbi Kahn entreated his listeners 70 years ago to make this synagogue into a spiritual powerhouse, a powerhouse of human life that produces the moral energy the world needs as fuel, fuel that will light the lamp of truth, that will fan the warmth of religious fellowship, and that will stoke the flaming ideals that transform society. If the synagogue functions as a spiritual powerhouse, this synagogue, Rabbi Kahn preached, it will produce the power that society desperately needs to make our world a better place for all. As the rabbi put it, Emanu should generate the power that leads to social improvement, the ideas upon which democracy were based, the idea of dignity, the dignity of humanity, and of the sacredness of the human personality, the right of a free voice, a free mind, a free ballot, of justice between man and woman, between man and woman and their government. Whence came the motives for all of this? To set the world afire against the social abuses of slavery, peonage, racial discrimination. All of these, he said, all of these have come from the teachings of our faith, both as we have taught it and as it has been taught by Judaism's daughter religions. Those words were written 70 years ago. So if this congregation, he said, could generate spiritual energy, it really would one day become a powerhouse of human life. And spiritual electricity, he predicted, would run into the home in order to transform the home with high morality. It would run into the schoolhouse to remind us of the value of truth. And it would run into the courthouse to remind us of the ideals of justice, and even into the market house with its message of integrity. Well, friends, this week's Sidra, this week's portion, is Parashat Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh comes from the book of Exodus, and in the very first line of this portion, our forebears were instructed by the text, Laha'alot ner tamid, to erect an eternal light. The documents tell us when this congregation was dedicated 70 years ago, that is, this building, that eternal light was the beginning of the dedication, just as that commandment is the first religious ritual described and commanded in this section of the Torah. And there is an often quoted Hasidic commentary on this particular commandment about the Ner Tamid, the light, the eternal light, that suggests that every Jew is potentially the incarnation, the literal incarnation of the Ner Tamid. Because when we take our Judaism seriously, then we, like the wick of the Ner Tamid, we ourselves become, if you will, the conduit of the energy which travels from the pure oil, which is, of course, our noble heritage, our past, our legacy, running through us to the light, which then becomes the eternal light, the light of the world. As the Hasidic master wrote, quote, "The souls of Israel are the wicks that convey oil toward the light." Well, this then is our mission. For 3,500 years, we've been trying to shed light on our ethical heritage, on a world that, as you know, sadly, is too often overwhelmed by darkness. Isaiah's famous injunction is our touchstone. It's no accident that it appears right here on the wall of the sanctuary. Ve'etenecha livrit am leor goyim. I have made you into a covenant people so that you may become a light to the nations. For 75 years, Emanu has been a storehouse of Jewish learning. It has been a safe house for Jewish living, and it has been a powerhouse of energy that will, we believe, one day bring greater light to our overcast world. But the last question is the most important of all, one that I pose before our Benot Mitzvah. How can we ensure that 75 years from now, the same will be able to be said of us? And the answer to this question comes, I suggest, from the brilliant German writer and philosopher Goethe, who placed these words in the mouth of his melancholy hero Faust, when Faust says, "What you have inherited from your forebears, you must earn for yourself if you wish to call it your own." What you have inherited from your forebears, you must earn for yourself if you wish to call it your own. 75 years from now, Samantha and Isabel, when others have come forward to take our place, and you will be standing where I'm standing, there will be people, I promise you, who will be searching through the American Jewish archives for profiles of courage. They will remember anniversaries, and they will reflect back on the 75 years that have transpired when this congregation is marking its 150th anniversary. And all we can do is say that if we take the gifts that have been given us from our forebears and we take pride in the courage that has been given us through their good acts, the blessings that we all enjoy as a free right sort of handed to us in our cradles, how else will they be able to respond except to say, those people didn't just talk about the past, they made history. And it is likely that no one captured the essence of my exhortation more briefly and more eloquently than David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, when he said, in a different context, but the point is the same, Ben-Gurion said, "We Jews must never, never live in the past, but the past must always live in us." Shabbat Shalom.
words in your handout. I will do justice, speak up for those who are not free, like Abraham and Sarah, their words still speak in me. I will love mercy and the neighbor by my side, like Moses taught our people as he led us through the night. Ki basot mishpat be'avat chesed be'atznei halechet im Elohecha. Ki basot mishpat be'avat chesed be'atznei halechet im
For the adoration that can be found on your service handout as the ark doors are opened. Would you all please rise?
To God.
Page 287. 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Together, rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth. We think of our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Our hearts go out in sympathy to the family of Yehuda Hayon, laid to his eternal rest just in recent days. And we lovingly remember those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death, falls on this Shabbat. Dave Baum, Abraham Bogart, Joseph Borden, Lynn Borovic, Marion Cohn Bodis, Morris Brand, Robert L. Brenner, Barbara Strauss-Buck, Louis Chellin, Kenneth Davis, Ernest DeLeaf, Marvin Effenson, H.B. Eisenstadt, Adolf Epstein, William Flaxman, Michael Forsmith, Rebecca Friedlander, Meyer Friedman, Eli S. Garson, Lillian E. Garson, Julius Gelber, Shirley L. Getz, Ray Gosayev, Linda Chapman Golden, Dorothy Lee Goldstein, Karen Ruth Goodman, Florence Grayboys, Alan Greenberg, Emily Harris, Gerald Harris, Fanny Helfman, Max Herman Herstein, Carl Hess, Shirley Hoffman, Doris M. Hooks, Harry Ignatoff, Esther B. Jessel, Sadie Kaiser, Samuel Kamens, Dave Kaplan, Benson Kaplan, Ida Katz, Rose Keeper, Dorothy L. Cosberg, Rosalie Krantz, Galina Kugas, Ella Landau, William Loffman, Sal Loffman, Helen Friedman Loffman, Cecilia Lefkowitz, Raisa Levinos, Stuart Lewis, Beatrice Lichter, Eugene Light, Faith G. Lipkin, Fanny Lipnick, Benjamin Lipton, Florence Margolis, Frida Hochstein Mendelowitz, Herbert George Myers, Lupe Orozco, Evelyn Lyons Palmer, Deborah Yvonne Parvin, Max Pasternak, Herbert Robbins, Stanley Philip Rock, Arnold Leonard Roseman, Erna Rosenthal, Goldie Raidman Rosner, Max David Rothenberg, Ruth Rothenberg, Alfred L. Al Rubin, Ansel Saknowitz, Lucille Saknowitz, Alec Schachter, Stephen Shine, Robert Schemberg, Harry Schnitzer, Inez Berman Seitz, Fan M. Sembler, Esther Shelby, Harriet Shelton, Carolyn Shields, Joseph C. Shields, Sarah Elaine Schoenhoff, Natalie Schultz, Fred Siegel, Ruth Levy Simon, Hallie Harwood Skolkin, Rose Solowitz, Marcel Stern, Frida Bell Stevenson, Irene Weinbaum, Robert Paul Weinberg, Isabel Irdoti Weiss, Sidonia Weiss, Mary Zeidel, Joseph Zoll. In this moment, with our grief and sympathies mingled, we rise together to praise God's name with the words of Kaddish, which can be found on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'izman kariv imru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Kedusha Brihu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiram bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen.
Oh, say shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imeru. Amen.
You may be seated. I invite our Benot Mitzvah back to the Bima. Isabel and Sam, please join me. Emily, come up with them, and we invite their cousins to join them as well to help lead us in Kiddush and Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit. Ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'ei kodesh, zeher liyad Mitzrayim. Ki banu b'harta v'otanu kidoshta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon Hichaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Take a sip. L'chaim.
I have no cousins.
Ready? Let's see. Get in there.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lehem min haaretz.
Amen. Our closing song this evening can be found on page 323, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharetz, Malachei Elyon, Mi'melech Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi'melech Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi'melech Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi'melech Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Please rise for the closing benediction. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God, God of our mothers and our fathers. As we continue to journey in this beautiful and magnificent anniversary year of 75, we are so grateful for the tremendous blessings, the guidance and strength of this holy and sacred place, and all of those who shed their own personal light to make it glow brighter and brighter. O God, we ask for your blessing in words that are ancient and hallowed by time. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'huneka. May the light of God's presence shine down upon you and be very sweet and gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's goodness always be turned to you and grant you the greatest gift of all, the gift of peace. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.